Good afternoon, everyone. We're just waiting for some people to get involved. Welcome to the spaces. We'll be starting very, very shortly. Unfortunately, we are having some issue with the background music. It's decided it doesn't want to play today. So, apologies for the awkward silence while we wait for some people to join, but we will be getting started in a couple of minutes. And a massive welcome to Router joining us today. But we will get started in a couple of moments. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Kyoto DeFi Spaces, Ep.1, exploring cross-chain interoperability. My name is Brandon G, also known as Bran, and I am the community manager of Kyoto. Today, we are joined on stage by co-founder of Kyoto, Ashton Hunt, and Brad Varney from Router Protocols business management team. But first of all, let's get an introduction there on Brad Varney. Brad Varney, how are you doing today?
Hello, Bran. How's it going? I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. I'm really thrilled to be here.
It's our absolute pleasure, Brad Varney. Thank you for joining us. I know Kyoto and Router Protocol have been working together quite a long time. You're already involved on our testnet. There's some great products you have going on your end, and what a better platform to talk about than a topic about interoperability. And we'll definitely get into that later. Ashton, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, and thank you for everyone joining us on this Wednesday. Yeah, it's a great topic. I'm looking forward to sharing to our audience a bit more about Router and touching on the topic itself. Yeah.
Of course. And Brad Varney, why not just jump straight into it? If you can, and if you don't mind, sorry, give us a little bit more information about yourself, your background, how long you've been at Router, and yeah, feel free to take the floor.
Sure thing, Bran. Thanks so much. Welcome, everyone, to this session. We're going to be covering routers methods of cross-chain interoperability today. Let me hop right into it. This year's pretty much been a very eventful one for us. Of course, Kyoto has seen our evolution through the years, but we've released our fastest, most efficient bridge, which is went live of Feb this year. We crossed over 300 million in transactions within the first 3 months, with little over 1 million in TVL. We've crossed about 250,000 unique users, and thousands of users are basically using Nitro Bridge every day. The architecture that we've built is actually used to extract the liability of liquidity outside of the bridge by using forwarders and orchestrators. We'll deep dive more into the architecture and what makes Router so special and what we're bringing to the table throughout this entire chat. And an introduction about me. Well, I'm Brad Varney. I started my crypto journey back in late 2019. I got in full time amidst the pandemic, and I've been with Router Protocol for over a year now, and I handle business partnerships and affiliations.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Brad Varney. It's an absolute amazing time that you got into crypto as well. The last bull run, the start of it actually, and managed to grow over there. And now you're involved with Router. It's amazing to see. And it just gives a massive insight to everyone who does want to get involved into crypto about the possibilities and what you can do within the space. And I'm sure we will be touching a lot more on Router and Nitro specifically later on in the spaces. One of my favorite platforms for bridging and moving my assets cross chain. But Ash, a little bit about yourself to kick off the space, a bit about Kyoto, and what our plans are for the future.
Well, a little bit about myself is that I mix the days of the week up. I just announced that it was Wednesday and it's actually Friday, so my bad on that. But look, I'm the co-founder of Kyoto. I got involved into cryptocurrency in 2016. Prior to that, I traded Forex, which gave me an interest into currency in general. The Bitcoin concept attracted me over. Been involved actively in the space, had businesses within the space, and yeah, Kyoto is really a not just a passion project, but I believe it's actually got a fitting space within the Web3 space as we kind of adopt new utilities to blockchain. But yeah, talking on this topic is of personal interest of mine.
Of course, and why not get straight into it? The topic of the space today, and if you have just joined, not to worry, the spaces are recorded. So if you do miss anything, feel free to listen back later on at your convenience. And if you do have any questions for either Brad Varney or Ashton in this space, you can always leave a message on this post, on this space, and we will get to them towards the end of the spaces. But why not just jump straight into it, right? We're exploring interoperability, and I think one of the main things that we need to understand from you, Brad Varney, and Ashton as well, is how does interoperability between projects? So you see, you're part of the project development team, the business management team, and Ashton, how does working with projects such as Router for interoperability help the user experience and functionality?
Well, I think it unlocks doors. Like Router's technology unlocks doors from other blockchains to ours. In Kyoto's example, we've built a blockchain for a use case, but ultimately we need to connect to the wider DeFi ecosystems, and Router does that. So that's it from our perspective. But from Router's perspective, I'd love to hear it.
Sure thing. So for us, interoperability is sort of like the key to unlocking a full potential of any kind of decentralized ecosystem, whether it's the protocol itself or the dApps that are building on it. They do need to access users and liquidity from everywhere on chain. So typically, we're like binding each and every chain, allowing for that seamless interoperability and features from different projects on different chains. It can be basically used interchangeably. So anyone that's new to the space and coming in doesn't really have to worry about where their assets are and on which blockchain they'd like to use them, if that makes sense.
Of course, no, I totally agree. And I think one of the biggest things in crypto nowadays is, especially for new people, if you are new to the space, is a lot of people are introduced to one cryptocurrency. And it's good to understand that them cryptocurrencies can be used among platforms, whether you're talking about Bitcoin, Solana, Kyoto token, everything can be moved and a lot can be done with said token. And that leads me on to my next one. And we'll start off with you, Brad Varney. And what are the benefits do you personally think of being able to utilize features from sort of Router to be able to make things interoperable? So what are the sort of key benefits do you believe?
Sure, sure. In fact, I'd probably hit this one up with an analogy as well. So everyone remembers those early days of having your funds on a particular blockchain on your wallet, and it's on cold storage because that's where everyone suggests you should keep it. But then you're limited to what you could do with those funds because they're only limited to the blockchain that they're on. So let's just say, for example, you've got stable coins and they're on a blockchain like Tron. You won't be able to access anything that's happening on Ethereum or anything that's happening on Matic, Polygon, or any of the blockchains. So ideally, you're like multiple steps and multiple costs away from achieving any kind of feature or usability from the destination chain. What Router's done here is created an architecture which enables almost same chain like transfers and swaps from any chain on source to any chain on destination. So ideally, a user basically is getting spoiled for choice here. They'll basically have the ability of managing their assets in a better way and flawlessly from no matter which kind of wallet or dApp it's present on.
I think that's a great answer. Like you mentioned, when a user is first on a blockchain of their choice, I would rewind a bit further. Like most people's journey into cryptocurrency happens through the likes of Coinbase or Crypto.com, and they typically hold their assets on there, and then they're crypto investors. But if you dive a bit deeper and you look into more of like the exotic altcoin offerings, you have to come off that platform and navigate whether it's cross chain to get to your destination chain to purchase the altcoin. And that was incredibly tricky a few years ago, right? It was not only stressful, it was relatively dangerous. And I think what you guys are doing helps massively in terms of the user journey, and also unlocking the ability for liquidity to flow, which is the most important thing.
Absolutely, absolutely, that's right.
And I think personally as well, that's one of the biggest things is, especially for new people onto the blockchain, right? Everyone has their own individual starting point, and I think just one thing if you could give me three, Brad Varney, three of the most positive things, just bullet points of what you think that it benefits a user to be able to use these sort of cross chain. So what benefits does it have? So if I have Bitcoin, like Ash said, on a regular centralized exchange, what are the benefits of being able to do this? What's the benefits of interoperability?
Gotcha. So, what we basically are faced with are limited product features available on decentralized applications. When a user has their funds on an exchange, they're thrown multiple kinds of product features, which give them different kinds of investment strategies, which sort of is like a one whole dashboard, giving them an overlook and outlook on their entire crypto portfolio. However, there are security concerns because the user lacks their own custody and their own keys in those cases. So ideally, the entire journey of creating a robust ecosystem on chain, which makes the user believe that they're not even missing out on anything that a centralized platform would provide, I think that's the main goal and agenda for us. So we're working with multiple dApps that have product features on their own native ecosystems, and trying to expand those features to alternate L1s and other ecosystems, which those product features would be more appreciated by users there as well, so that users and liquidity can seamlessly flow wherever they're meant to, no matter whether they're on an EVM chain or a non-EVM chain. So I think one of Router's USPs are that we're not just concentrating on the EVM ecosystem, but we've integrated a lot more L1s like Tron and Near and upcoming Cosmos and Solana, which are their own L1 ecosystems and do have their own dApps and users. So allowing for seamless accessibility and flow between these ecosystems, I think that's going to make President's next cycle and going to be a sort of large reason for users and dApps to scale altogether.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And just one thing I have for you, Brad Varney. If you could, we're going to get on to Nitro, which is one of Router's products, and I'm sure there's a lot more to talk about after that. But if you could, just how easy is it to sort of go through a cross-chain transaction with Router? If you could run us through how simple the process is.
Oh, sure. It's actually quite simple. You just head over to our application, which is app.routernitro.com. You connect your wallet. You just have to select your source and destination chains, the tokens that you're looking to swap between. You approve the transaction. The interface is super intuitive. It shows you exactly how much time and gas is required for that particular transaction, and you approve and swap. And the best part is you also get some prizes for doing bridging. So we're giving away like carrot points to users, which can unlock certain activities within the application, which reward users for bridging between chains. And on the back end too, I mean, let me give you a deep dive into how it works. It's actually a very simple architecture to understand. So when a user requests for a cross-chain swap, they basically lock their funds on Nitro, and Nitro constantly emits requests to forwarders. Now, forwarders for us are liquidity providers. They run nodes on Router, so they basically keep listening for cross-chain events which users bring to Router Nitro, and they pick up these events and front run it for the user. So ideally, the forwarder that completes the request, they prove on Router to unlock the user's deposits, which were locked by the user on source chain. So the forwarder basically accepts multiple liquidity on multiple chains, which allows us for the settlement on both sides to happen on a same chain-like level. And that's what allows our architecture to give you almost instantaneous cross-chain swaps and across EVM and non-EVM. So again, this forwarder mechanism is permissionless. It's an open system, and anyone can participate.
Amazing, thank you, Bradwani. And just before we get into, I've got a couple of questions in regards to security because I know there has been in recent times where there were some security concerns with some other major bridging platforms, so to say, and we'll touch base on that in a moment. But Ashton, just I want to hear your thoughts and remarks on interoperability and what it really means to you personally, especially for Kyoto. I know Kyoto has a massive ecosystem currently being built, set to launch on the 27th of June this year. But what does it mean for you, or specifically Kyoto directly, in regards to interoperability?
Yeah, I think that having technologies like Router on our chain just unlocks barriers of entry, which is obviously, as a startup and developing our own products, we need to ensure that the barriers are reduced as much as possible. Whether we have, centralized routes to market through centralized exchanges or decentralized routes to market through Router and then obviously DEXs, is, important to me. But it's a really cool bit of tech, right? I use it. I'm massively bullish on kind of the layer zero approach in the future, where a user won't recognize that they're on a certain blockchain. It's just done on the UI perspective, and everything's as cheap as can be, switching between networks. But yeah, really, it's just reducing the barriers for Kyoto's users, which excites me the most.
No, I totally agree, and I think it's great to understand, especially for every level. It's definitely needed, whether you're a beginner in crypto or you are a company such as Kyoto or even Router, to have the ability to not limit yourself. And I think it's a massive, massive thing for all levels of users, and definitely something, if you're not familiar with, if you're new to the space, to definitely learn about. So, Brad Varney, before we get directly into Router, specifically Nitro, and some of the other cool products you guys have, some releases you have recently, one of the questions I have is, I touched base before on security, right, where we had an issue with a platform called Multichain, who had issues with security as such, and funds. And I think one of the biggest things right now in crypto, especially for people with there's been a lot of things. I'm not going to touch base on all of them, but what is the security like at Router? So it's a massive thing, holding funds, bridging funds. It leaves your wallet, it comes back to your wallet. So there's always that worry that there may have any issues there. So what is your measurement of security compared to other bridges, as such?
That's a great question, Brian. So router security standards are industry leading. Our V1 bridge, which was launched back in 2022, it was functional without any kind of security flaws. We just released upgraded version, which is Nitro, earlier this year in Feb, and it further enhances what we brought to the table with our V1. So, as I said earlier, unlike other bridges in the space, our architecture is very different, and we don't rely on locking up a smart contract with TVL. So, there's nothing really to hack. Each transaction request is individually validated, and the liquidity is held by forwarders, which are solvers. So when router receives a user's cross-chain request, the forwarder listens to it and completes it, and then proves to router that it's completed it in order to unlock that user's particular locked funds along with their rewards. So each and every user transaction happens on an individual attestation and on a per transaction basis, which allows much greater security. And we also have an incentivized system to allow users to participate and pause any chain connections if there so happens to be any distress that they know about. And of course, they get incentivized if they're correct, and they get slashed if they're incorrect. So this sort of enhances the kind of ecosystem inputs that we take, and the amount of different kinds of transaction flows that we can enable and disable at any given measure.
Thank you. And I know myself, I'm a massive user of Nitro, especially for going from EVM to non-EVM chains, like you said, and I'm very much looking forward to using it in the future for Kyoto. A lot of questions that arise before we get directly into Router, what's coming with the future, and the plans with Nitro. Um, a lot of questions we get ourselves at Kyoto, and it's a question because of the governments and because of the politicians say. But have you? I don't think you have, but have you encountered any regulatory or compliance challenges related to any of your cross-chain interoperability? And if so, have you addressed them?
At present, at Router, we haven't ever faced any regulatory scrutiny as such. Ours is a permissionless infra, and all the cross-chain data is live on our Explorer. When and if required, we will work with regulators to ensure on-chain compliance, and of course, we will hold the highest standards of ethics. So, I mean, in case there is any kind of requirement that comes for compliance, we will follow.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Bradvani. And I think that's all of the I promise you that's all of the difficult questions out of the way. And now I just really want to give you the floor to have a little bit of a spotlight for Router. I know you started at the start by giving us a little overview of Router, what Router does. But if you could give us a little bit more of an expanded overview of what you guys do over at Router. I know you've got the bridge in place, the Nitro, and you have some more some other products. So please feel free to take the floor and let us know.
Yeah, sure. Cool. In fact, I think I might have mentioned before that Nitro's bridging sort of like enables almost same chain like speeds on cross chain levels. So this is mainly because of the architecture where both the settlements, as explained, happen on single chains. So, like a user to Nitro bridge chain assessment and forwarder to user chain settlement would generally take about 20 to 30 seconds. And that's what we recorded on average. So if you can go down to Nitro and probably like just check out the different kinds of routes, you'll see that we're on over like 20 chains already, and that is EVM and non-EVM both. So there's a lot to explore when given any kind of on-chain tasks that are on a chain you think you'll never be able to enable liquidity to. Router will provide that for you. And yes, we've got multiple features that we've been launching along the platform. We've got a competition going on where users can accrue points, and those points will give them benefits with the additional products that we'll be launching. There's also cross-chain messaging, which is the fun part that we're getting to, and the new products we're building is all based on that. So I think asset transfers is like overspoken about in the space. Now what we're working on is, along with the asset transfer, we're also sending an instruction or like messaging sequence to the destination chain. So generally what happens here is a user would be able to like mint an Ethereum NFT with their Matic tokens on Polygon directly, or maybe stake Ethereum on Lido using their spare BNB. And Router will handle all the asset transfer and the messaging instruction logic to the destination chain. In fact, we already have an LRT aggregator. You guys can check it out. It's called stakeease.com. And a lot of users basically use stakeease to get their Ethereum restaked on EigenLayer with the multiple restaking protocols. So they were like dual farming those points and saving a lot of time and gas while at it. So again, with CCIF, that's our new intent framework. Products like this are endless, and dApps will be able to work with us to configure whatever they'd like to achieve on any destination chain. So we have a strong tech team building around the clock, and of course, we basically work with our partners to understand what is it their ecosystem requires to get more TVL and users to the ecosystem. So we're going to be working closely with Kyoto as well. Be rest assured, if you users think that there's any way we can enhance your on-chain experience, be all ears and to help you out achieve it.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, there is so much going on at Router, and I know recently, correct me if I'm wrong, you launched a gas top up in February. If you could explain that functionality and how it helps Nitro users.
Oh, sure, sure. It's actually a really cool feature, and I think it's pretty important as well. So what happens is when a user generally does a cross-chain transaction, they're also given the option of selecting any destination chain address. So let's just say a user would like to send funds to a freshly set up wallet, or maybe they're sending funds to their wallet, but there's no gas of that particular token that they're sending. which is the native tokens gas. So what a top up allows the user to do is it charges you a little extra on the source chain at the time of locking up your funds, but provides you the gas to use the tokens once they've been swapped into the destination chain. So ideally, this is sort of like a helpful element so that you're not stuck with those tokens once you've bridged them across to your desired chain. You can actually use them with the gas there as well.
That's a
Yeah,
really good idea. Yeah.
that is a good feature. You know, I've been stuck many times before in bridging assets to a different chain, looking to purchase a cryptocurrency and not having any gas to facilitate that transaction. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
the number of
definitely a
times.
good use case.
Yeah, it's like a couple of transactions then, and you're just spending extra gas. And if that's on ERC20, then damn, I mean, you just made an L there. So
Yeah, and look, cross chain messaging is it is the next. Well, it's already a big thing, right? And it helps between it scales the utilities and what we can build on the blockchain. So Wormhole, I think, exceeded it was like 1 billion messages, cross chain messages, just recently, which is a huge amount of messages, really.
yeah, messaging is actually very important because a lot of dApps, you don't even know they require messaging, but in the back end, they actually have a lot of requirements for messaging, especially if they have front ends on multiple different chains. So on the back end, trying to create that seamless interoperability for a user that has one wallet enabled on multiple chains as well. So there's a lot of work, especially in the gaming and DeFi sectors specifically.
Yeah, look, we're using cross-chain messaging for when we migrate from our current chain to obviously the Kyoto chain. So, yeah, it's a big topic and great that you're moving towards that. Brian, I'll let you follow on with your next question.
Of course, thank you very much. No, feel free to back and forth as much as you like. It's interesting to hear, especially from both sides. Completely different but similar protocols. But no, what we will say is, I've personally used Nitro, and I know that it is very fast. And I've used it because I know back in the day, when we had the issue with other major platforms and people were a bit skeptical about bridges. I know people usually would send it to a CEX, send it back to their wallet wherever they needed, and it was a very time consuming process. But Ronnie, how on average, sort of, what is the time it takes to complete a bridging transaction on Nitro?
On average 20 to 30 seconds. It would be more towards the 30 side if you're looking at an Ethereum destination, but generally the L2s are much faster.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I know it's a very, especially getting your money off a centralized exchange could be a very time restrictive event. So I do have one question for you, Brad Varney. And this is for you directly. We're speaking a lot about other crypto tokens and a lot about moving your tokens on Nitro. But a question is, does Router have a token? If so, how is this going to be supported by the Router ecosystem? And will we be able to purchase this on maybe Kyoto Swap or any other DEX on the Kyoto chain after June 27th?
Oh, most certainly. In fact, we do have a token. It goes by ROUTE, that's route. And it's also listed on multiple exchanges. In fact, I think we had one of the highest number of votes that were recorded in like 3 seconds while we did our Bybit listing. So there's a lot of engagement from our community and excitement for seeing how they can participate in the entire interoperability sphere with us. Of course, the tokens have a huge play with that because we're at the end of the day a POS validated chain. So, and forwarders will also be incentivized with a lot of ecosystem rewards. So, since we've moved to Cosmos, I think there is a larger play in effect here, and the team will be releasing the information soon on how the entire ecosystem and participants would be able to participate and be rewarded for creating an entire inclusive interoperability ecosystem.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And just a couple of more questions for you, Radvani. Not, I know that getting questions thrown at you is a lot, and you've given some amazing answers today. So I know the community and the router community must appreciate it highly. So you touched base on sort of cross-chain messaging before. What are some of the more innovative ways that router yourselves and maybe some of your partners have utilized cross-chain messaging?
Sure, sure. I'm not sure if a lot of people have actually been able to check this out because it's very recent. But we've most recently launched our intent adapter store. Now this is a basic. It's using just our cross-chain messaging to allow one-click transactions on any destination from any chain the user chooses at source. So basically, a user can use whatever funds they have available to participate in any kind of activities on um, basically any other chain. So how cool is that? Right now, we've launched two adapters which are that can be utilized. One is directly with Lido, and one's with Velocore. So these ecosystems allow for dual farming of rewards by using our adapters. You basically have your funds transferred and as well staked on the destination as well. So that's two transactions that's clubbed into one, saving the user the time and gas for approving and submitting the second transaction. So ideally, what we're doing is a good way to think about it through an analogy, which I mentioned earlier, is let's just say a bridge is like a GPS, right? And a user is like a user, and let's just say they want to get a cab, and the cab is the blockchain that they're using. So if they probably want to go to any destination, maybe the destination could be another blockchain. They would probably have to use the GPS and help the cabbie find their route to the destination. All right, these are the olden days before we had Uber, right? I mean, you probably had to guide your cab to the destination because probably he didn't know the route himself. And if you make mistakes, you end up spending more, and you end up, spending more time and money, both, right? So it's pretty similar here. What we've brought to the table is intents. So you could think of intents as an Uber driver, where they're using the GPS and they know your destination. And all you do is tell them where you want to go, and they will get you there in the fastest way possible for the least amount of cost possible. So ideally, that's a good way to think about it. That's what we've done with cross-chain. So a user basically can ship their funds anywhere. They just intend to have their funds used for a certain event, and Router does all the heavy lifting for them on the back end.
Amazing, amazing, and yeah. So there is a lot going on at Router. I think everyone can see today, especially from this Twitter space, all the hard work going into a lot of the products at Router, and especially with interoperability. And I think one of the biggest things of this space and the whole point of this space. And Bradvani, I'll start with you and then move it on to Ash. Um, in the future, how do you see interoperability driving collaborations among different blockchain projects and communities? I know we're in a very, very competitive market. Sometimes it may be a dog eat dog world. However, interoperability is definitely something that will bring projects together. So, how do you think that will happen?
And it sure is. But you know what they say, right? Crypto is all about freedom. It's about equality, inclusivity, and we believe we're enhancing this on a chain level, where developers, users, products can all be on the same plane rather than segregated in silos. So that's our way of looking at it. From a larger perspective.
Yeah, like, I echo those comments. I just wanted to ask Predvani a question regarding security, because I used it was AnySwap, but then obviously rebranded to multi-chain, and it wasn't too long ago the hack occurred, and I'm sure some of our listeners probably remember it. It was probably it was less than a year ago. I think it was July last year, and it was $126 million. That was the loss on that hack, and it was because the private keys were compromised. And just from understanding how you laid out the architecture, I presume that's impossible to happen with your approach. Is that correct?
Absolutely, there isn't any smart contract with that kind of TVL to hack with us, right?
Yeah. Okay. That's what I wanted to pick up on, that because ultimately multi-chain lost those funds because private keys were
Compromised.
Compromised. So interesting. Fine. And it's an evolution on cross-chain swapping. I was a user of multi-chain. Thankfully, didn't get burnt. But sometimes bad things happen for good products to be built, and this is a use case right here.
I mean, the whole idea is to pick up on the failures of others to understand exactly what went wrong and make sure that you build something that completely overcomes that, right? And that's what every product's evolution cycle typically is. Its upgraded version is just taking over so much more than its previous predecessor could, We saw that with general Web2 apps. You're definitely going to see that with Web3 apps as well. The more adoption and utility that comes into the space, the more it's required. So, given going forward, I think there's a lot of requirements for robust pen tests, for security audits, and with router protocol, since we're working on both EVMs and non-EVMs, we literally have to dual audit when we're working with double chains. So to make sure that we've got both sides taken care of. And all our audits and everything are public, and everyone can go through them. And of course, we had also given away a $200,000 prize to anyone who can try and hack us. So that's like how certain we are of our security.
That's good to hear. That is good to hear. Look, and the way I see this, it's a new age technology. I know, like in crypto and Web3, everything moves very quickly, but it was only in 2017 that atomic swaps started to become really popular. And your platform really is kind of a new generation of how to do an atomic swap, right? I know you have to send a message and you wait a little bit for your funds. But it was Charlie Lee in 2017, I think, that demonstrated that you could swap Litecoin for Bitcoin. And that was like kind of the first cross-chain swap. But now, we're jumping between different chains, click of a button, relatively easy with our bags. So yeah, look, it's been a really good conversation, and it's good to understand and learn about router. Brad, is there anything else from your side? Because I know that Brad Varney's been peppered with your questions.
Of course,
Anything
I
from your
know.
side?
I apologize. In the AMAs, the Kyoto have, there's always a, a boatload of questions, and yeah, myself as well. Like you said, Ash, I was unfortunately still waiting for my Phantom from multi chain. So, hopefully it'll
Ouch.
come one day. But my funds have always arrived on time with Nitro, and that's the important point here. Sometimes even faster than actually. Brad Varney, one thing that I've noticed by using Nitro is sometimes my funds come faster than the UI can even catch
Yeah.
up with, which
Yeah.
is, I mean, you can't get any better than that. So, Brad
That's a
Varney,
pleasant surprise, isn't it?
what I will do is I just want to. We've heard a lot about what has happened with Router and what's gone on with Router in the past months and years. But one major last question I have for you is what's on the horizon for the future, the roadmap of Router, and things that people can look forward to. Really.
Sure. So I think again in the future, I don't think users need to worry about or think twice about where they want to like move their funds or use their funds. They should easily be able to participate across multiple chains with limited obstructions. And for us, like we're looking at further L1 support, more on intent-driven products, and a launching of our own L1 chain, which will probably have dApps building on it as well. So there's a lot more for us to be working on, and the team is round the clock. Looking at about 40 adapters to be coming out over this year, and these are all over the different partners that we've got and dApps in their ecosystem, where users would basically directly from their wallets be able to interact with those dApps and use any of the funds they have available on them. So it sounds really cool, and until we make it possible, we're gonna ensure we just keep the grind on. And looking forward to getting those products going with Kyoto as well. And hopefully we can, after this call, get back and synergize on multiple products with CCIF and intents that we could be driving for y'all.
Definitely.
Of course, and yeah, a massive thank you, Brad Varney, for taking the time out of your day to join us on Spaces today. As I said at the start of Space, it is the first of many. If you have joined late in the space today, not to worry, the spaces are recorded. You can head over to our profile to re-listen to the spaces if you have missed anything, and also you can head over to Router Protocol. I have pinned one of their pinned tweets. Head over to Router Protocol's X account and see all their latest updates. Join their community, get involved. They have a lot of great products coming, have a lot of great products out. And I think one thing just to close off the space today, Bradvani, is I just want to give you some time. If there is anything we haven't covered today, please feel free to take the floor now. If there's anything that you feel needs some more attention to push or talk about, now's the time, and feel free to close out from there. Thank you.
Sure thing. Guys, everyone listening, I hope you all go ahead and try Nitro. It's always better to hear the feedback from you guys and listen to the different kinds of products that we could build for you all. So do give it a shot and let us know what you think about it. Apart from that, I think pretty much covered everything that there is to what we're doing right now. And there's a lot more for you guys to keep your eyes on. So stay peeled on our space on Router Protocol on both Kyoto. There's basically a lot for you all to gain from that. And that's about it. Ashton, Brand, thank you guys so much for having me on. It was a real pleasure to be here. And until our next one, man. See you guys.
Thank you, Brad Varney. Keep
Thank you
building.
very much, Brad Varney. And guys, if like I said, feel free to follow us, follow Router Protocol, and keep your eyes peeled for our next DeFi spaces. But it's been Brandon, joined by Ashton and Brad Varney. And thank you guys very much for listening to our Twitter spaces. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.